So how many times have you been told, oh, without government, oh, we need government. Without government, who would regulate, the evil corporations and control and dictate all the bad people and make sure that, you know, people weren't doing these nasty things or businesses weren't destroying, our waterways or in the environment in these unscrupulous manners without anybody holding them to account. Well, once again, as always is the case, is reality over rhetoric. CBC News, politics, billions of liters of raw sewage, untreated wastewater pouring into Canadian waterways. Conservatives introduced new rules in 2012, but problem was actually worse last year. So who cares which political party? This is obviously the Conservatives in 2012 tried to crack down and create more, which is weird for the Conservative Party. But either way, like I say, it's just the way the narrative they try. Everything in the mainstream media, especially CBC News, which is just, like another branch of the government. I mean, think about it, right? The answer to everything is always going to be government or regulations. That's all they know, because that's how they create the bureaucracy. That's how they create their jobs, right? But these are jobs, and they're paid mighty well for their jobs. But as you're seeing, it's wasted money. It's wasted resources. Think of how hard you as a Canadian citizen work for your money, and it's being squandered and paid to these people that live really entitled lifestyles, much better than you could ever hope for. And what are they doing? Nothing. It's not benefiting anybody. It's obviously it's not, like I said, the reality isn't playing out in any manner even close to resembling the rhetoric they put forth. And we know this because lobbyists. So if a government says, here's a rule against companies. We all know that these companies will come together and lobby government and tweak them. And if you think people in government aren't willing to grease their palms and cozy up, I mean, you just don't understand government if that's the case. Which is why, like I said, it has never worked. Technology, proper incentives, right? The market, innovation. Those are the things that have always helped humanity advance past these things that have been a detriment to humans in the past. We find ways to get around them, but the government or initiatives always prove to be a failing model. It's the fucking innovators in the private sector, and you know this, that always come up with the proper model, with the proper way of doing things that doesn't rely on force, mysticism, or subjecting to the people to theft and oppression. Markets. That's how you do things. Education and markets. And proper economic incentives and fundamentals. More than 205 billion liters. 205 billion liters of raw sewage and untreated wastewater spewed into Canadian rivers and oceans last year, CBC News has learned, despite federal regulations introduced in 2012 to try to solve the problem. Despite, so think of all the money, think of all the people, all the parasites that are earning their keep, they're living, but they're not producing anything real or tangible in society. Obviously, right? Obviously. This is proof right here. Obviously. And think about how many of these people are making a whole lot more money and they're not producing anything, but they get to go home, without even having to worry like you or I would have to in the private sector of the perilous situations that we feel as far as economics and employment. They don't have to worry about none of that stuff, and yet they're failing continuously. Well, that's why. A cause and effect correlation, it's there. Toilet paper washes up onto beaches near small towns in Newfoundland and Labrador and Victoria, BC. Divers report sick kelp and polluted scallops near sewage discharge pipes. In fact, the amount of untreated wastewater, which includes raw sewage and rain and snow runoff that flowed into Canadian rivers and oceans last year, would fill 82,255 Olympic-sized swimming pools, an increase of 1.9% over 2014. The volume was supposed to drop as cities and towns moved to comply with the standards the Conservative government adopted 4 years ago. The rules required municipalities to do secondary treatment to remove not just solid waste but also dissolve organic material. The worst offenders have until 2020 to comply. Municipalities that were doing some water treatment but didn't meet the newer standards have until 2030 or 2040. Municipalities that don't meet the deadlines face the prospect of charges and stiff fines. So the municipalities that don't meet, but who's going to pay the fines? Like, okay, let's use Toronto's municipality or a mayor. Is John Tory going to have to pay the fine? Or is it going to be the Toronto people? So the Toronto people, the people are always punished, even though if it's the people that are trying to do the things, but the governments force other people to pay for the acts or the misdeeds or the wrongdoings of others. This forced subjugation, this collectivism, I mean, it just destroys natural incentives and fundamentals, which is why what we're seeing, and which is why look at the world around you today. This is the reality of all this shit. And yet they still keep trying to put forth. Now, I guarantee if I read through the rest of this article, which I will not, I'll leave that up to you. I'll put a link to this article in the description of the video. Continue reading on. But I'm just going to guess, and no, I haven't read it, the full thing just yet. But I'm probably going to guess here, and I might be wrong. If I am, put that out in the comment below. But chances are they're probably trying to put forth a premise where a different government, the Liberals, right, that's in power now, will find another way to create more bureaucracy, or they're going to fix things this time. They'll do a better job at it, right? And then in 10, 20 years, then the vicious cycle will continue. And we all know this. If I'm proven wrong in the long run, call me out on it. Go right ahead. So far, it's very quiet. I look around, I'm listening. Either I'm usually right all the time, pat myself on the back, or people are just unwilling to tell me that I'm wrong. I don't know which one it is, but one way or the other, we're going to get to the bottom of this in the long run. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.